Welcome back to Living Local. Many major cities have a thriving music scene that includes a symphony orchestra, and the Quad Cities is no exception. Its founding in 1915 places the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, QCSO, among the 20 longest established, continuously operating orchestra associations in the United States. Led by music director Russel Smith, the orchestra consists of top-level musicians from the Quad Cities and across the region. It is considered among the highest-level regional orchestras of its size. Joining me in studio is Russel Smith. Thank you so much for being here, Mark.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, give us a little background of your studies with music and what inspired you.
Well, I grew up in a musical family. My dad was a choir conductor, a church choir conductor, and taught at college, and my mom is an elementary school music teacher, so it was kind of the family trade. And so I sang in choirs, and I was drum major of the marching band, and I played cello. Cello was my instrument, and was lucky enough to get into the Juilliard School in New York City. And so studied cello for 4 years, and then went to a school in Philadelphia called the Curtis Institute of Music for studying conducting. And so they're really high-level schools, and so you're just surrounded by incredibly talented people. And so inspired by that, and inspired by just the creativity all around, was, you know, it was just a really fortunate thing that doors kept opening for me, and so I was able to forge a career.
And what made you pick the cello?
Well, I love the sound of it. Actually, my school, my public school, had a really fine orchestra program, and so which is true of the Quad Cities, or almost all the Quad Cities, and it's something that the Quad City Symphony actually helps to promote. So early on, we had the opportunity to choose, and I just loved the sound, the mellow sound of it, and I thought the violin was too high, and I'm a big guy, and I was even big as a kid, and so I just loved the sound of the cello.
And Mark, what attracted you to conducting music?
Well, I think it's working with people, and it's also kind of having the big picture. You know, I love playing the cello, and I love playing a part of the symphony, but I also love figuring out how the music is all put together. I mean, it's like being a coach in a way, you know, kind of all the X's and O's and how things fit together and how the composer has written things. And so I love studying that big picture, and I really love I hope that I inspire people. I love sharing music, and so it's really part of being a people person and also kind of an analytical person, I guess. It's a nice combination.
It really is a nice marriage there. How do you think having a quality symphony orchestra benefits a community? Well,
I think it's all too infrequent that we sit down and listen to something, and without distractions, without phones, without TVs, and without screens, you know, just sit down and take things in orally. And so the opportunity for our public to come and listen to some of the greatest masterworks that men and women have ever created, and to see something come to life on stage, it's a unique experience. And so to have that respite, to be able to take a break, to be able to kind of dwell in a very special world without any distractions is, I think, a real privilege, and it's something that everybody needs, to be honest. And so we are able to offer that, and I think it's unique.
That was my experience when I've attended the symphony before. It's almost like an escape. You forget about the distractions because you aren't distracted, and you are allowed to be completely present,
right,
and then just consumed by the music, because just the acoustics
Absolutely,
of a facility, it's all-encompassing.
Well, and you don't have to know anything about it either.
Right.
Like, we're doing an incredibly complex, deep Mahler symphony coming up this weekend, and it's an amazing piece that takes you on an unbelievable journey. And whether you've heard it for 50 times or whether you've never heard it before, the experience will be very rich. And that's really an important message, that, you know, you don't have to know about classical music, you don't have to have played anything. It's, I think, rich enough and powerful enough and expressive enough that it will reach you wherever you are.
And speaking of that exciting performance coming up, what can people expect?
Well, it's just exactly like you said. I think this in particular is a work by a guy, Gustav Mahler, who lived right at the end of the 18th century, so into the 1910s, 1912 or so, I think he died. But a really complex guy, and a super smart guy, but really emotional, so this music has everything. It has love music, it has despair, it has tragedy, it has marches, it has dances. I mean, it really covers the gamut of the human experience. I mean, it's kind of a lot to say, but it really is true. And so in an hour and 20 minutes, you live a life. And if you allow the magic of this music with a huge orchestra, you know, a gigantic string section, big winds and brass, I mean, it's just incredible colors. And so it's a really incredible journey. You know, it's, you know, I wouldn't say it's like movie music, but in some ways, some of that kind of the epicness, if that's a word, comes through. And so, I mean, you will leave feeling differently than when you came in. And it's really a transformational experience. And I hope it's not hyperbole to say that, because it truly is. If you sit there and allow the magic of this art to work, it's really an amazing thing.
Yeah, Mark, and I think any time that we consume any type of art, we are looking to be impacted or moved or changed in some way.
Right.
So it sounds like this piece will accomplish that.
Absolutely, and it's not passive. I mean, we talked about, you know, you don't really have to know anything about it, but if you sit back, but you also just get taken on a journey. You know, it's like I'm watching a great movie or reading a great novel. I mean, you're taken and you want to turn the next page and you want to know what's going next. And then at the end, you're changed and you're different and you feel like, wow, this is something that is unique. It's just a fantastic thing.
And why did you decide to only feature this work? Because a lot of times you guys will feature multiple.
Right. I mean, many times we have a soloist, a pianist or violinist. We've had Yo-Yo Ma. We've had, you know, all sorts of famous people. But we have an incredible orchestra here. And so this features their virtuosity and their, you know, just incredible musicianship. And it's such a big, I mean, we don't always do just one huge piece like this, so it's unique in that way. It's interesting, I think, that the Quad City Symphony has a tradition of doing symphonies of Mahler. The conductors before me had a great interest, and it was a very German town, as we know, you know. And so lots of the old German audience, the immigrant Germans wanted to hear Mahler, and so we have a wonderful tradition of that. This symphony has never been played, I think, because it's really complex, but it's also just it's big, and so putting something around it would, I think, kind of distract from it, and so the experience will be shorter. You know, the ultimate concert will be shorter, but it's one big piece, and so I think it was difficult to find something else to go with it, and maybe the best audience experience is not to have anything else.
And this is clearly a performance we do not want to miss. What can you give us a quick preview of what remains for the season with the Quad City Symphony Orchestra?
We have kind of the most famous piece ever, which is Beethoven's 5th Symphony. Ba-ba-ba-bum. You know, I mean, the piece that when that happens, the whole audience, you know, practically breaks into applause. You know, so we have that coming up in our Masterworks V, and then we end the season with an incredible piece by a new composer from Chicago, who's writing a piece about the Quad Cities. And so Bix Beiderbecke, the famous trumpet player, you know, there are all sorts of references to the Quad Cities and to the tradition. And so we've asked this composer to write a piece just for us. And so we're going to premiere that on the final concert of the year. So we have 2 more big well, 3, including this weekend. But and again, every concert's different. There's soloists, most of them, and shorter pieces. So this weekend is unique, and that's why we're talking about it, because it's not the average thing, and it's certainly not the average experience to live with a piece like that.
Mark, thank you so much for the information.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here.
Good, thanks.
If you would like some more information on the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, you can go to its website at QCSO.org, and you can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We'll have more details posted on ourquadcities.com. Stick with us. More Living Local is next.